have our presentation. Hang on.
So I hope you all will enjoy this, and maybe some of you might want to get a nice soft pillow. This may be the cure for insomnia that you're looking for, but most people know that I have always been a collector of early American coins. I started off with colonials and I moved into the large cents at kind of an early age, but in my later age when I could afford a few more dollars worth of coins, I started to specialize in 1794 cents. So tonight, I thought it might just be nice to maybe honor Richard Notbar's memory. And what I'd like to talk about is Dr. Edward Maris and his ladies. And of course, John made it clear, his ladies are his coins. And I call this a look at what he started, because he was the first person to put into print a guide of 1794 US large cents. But a little personal information about him. He was born in Pennsylvania. He was well educated. His father was the president of a local bank in Pennsylvania. So he had a nice profession that was able to take good care of his family. Edward grew up to be a physician. He was with the Philadelphia dispensary for quite some time. But I believe it was around 1880. Yeah, it was 1880 that he went into his private practice. And he was married twice. You can see there where I have the family. He was married twice. He had 4 children with his first wife, Eleanor. And when she passed away, unfortunately, after only about maybe 15 years of marriage, I believe, he did marry Rachel Scattergood. We have no evidence of any children with her. He was a very big hobbyist, and everybody knows him for collecting large cents and also colonials. He wrote several books, they say, but really the publications that he wrote, you can see I put here, Varieties of the Copper Issues of the United States Mint in the year 1794. His first edition was issued in 1869, and his second edition was issued in 1870, just a year later. But he also issued a hardcover book called A Historical Sketch of the Coins of New Jersey. And he's probably most well known as being the first person to assemble anything on that was usable on New Jersey colonial coins. And he did die, of course, as I have here, in 1900. These are copies of the front cover of the 2 issues on 1794 large cents. These were paperbacks. And as you know, the paper in the 1860s and 1870s was is filled with acid, and these did not hold up well. The 1869 issue, the first one to come out, there's about 100 copies that survive today. And you can obtain a fairly decent copy for about $1,000, although nowadays that might be a little on the high side. You might be able to get one for $800, but I'm not sure. They don't pop up all that often, but more often than the 1870. The 1870, there are only 9 that are known. And these are copies, these photos are copies of the ones that are in my collection. And they were very interesting. They were written up in the American Journal of Numismatics. In 1869, there was a review article printed, and in 1870, there was another review article printed of that one. And in 1869, they made special note down here in this area to mention why the pamphlet was so important. It was important simply because Maris gave nicknames to many of the large cents, and that's what we're going to look at tonight. Those are his ladies. We're going to be looking at the nicknames. But before we do, I just want to mention that coins at the early mint, we all know, were made on a screw press. And a screw press, I don't know if Marcus is aware of this. Marcus, I don't want to assume anything, and I certainly don't want to offend your knowledge. But the screw press is just what it says. One of the dies, generally the obverse die, we think, was placed on the screw press, on the screw itself, and the reverse die was placed on the anvil side, it got the hit. Now, some people speculate it was the other way around, and I can see evidence that sometimes the obverse might have been on the screw, and sometimes the reverse might have been on the screw side. But we won't get into that. I just want to make note that there were no collars that held these dies in place. It was a simple process. 2 men, sometimes 4 men, would yank on the cords, the screw would come down, and the obverse die and the reverse die would crash into a blank planchet, and make a coin. It's important for several reasons that we'll discuss. And before we get into that, I want to show you what his ladies were nicknamed. He had 30 names. On this first page, I have the first 15. So the number that you see here is just my ordering number, 1 through 15. In Maris's pamphlets, his little booklets, his Maris number 1 was what we know today as Sheldon number 20. His Maris number 2 was what we know as Sheldon 19. And I'll just jump down to a random one. His Maris number 11 was what we know as Sheldon 59. But the nicknames is what I'd like to look at. The 93 head, the double chin, the sans milling, the tilted 4. Now, I'm not going to read everything to you. I know that you can read these, but some of the names like pyramidal head, standless 4, the ornate, the Venus Marina. And on the next page, the next 15, the fallen 4, Patagonian, marred field. These nicknames stood the test of time because many people will still use them when they catalog the coins, and especially when they describe them in certain kinds of presentations, like I'm doing tonight. So we're going to take a look at a few of these. And to start off, what I'd like to show you is the names of the 3 heads. Heads of 93, heads of 94, and heads of 95. Commonly, you can break down all 1794 large cents, and you'll notice that all of these are dated 1794. They're obviously all of a different variety because they all have a different head style. Maris noticed that the early ones, called the heads of 93, had the exact head of the busts of the 93 large cents at the end of 1793. Now we know 1793 started off with chain cents, then they went to wreath cents, and then they went to the cap, the Liberty cap format. Now, if you look at Miss Liberty here, she's kind of young looking. She's quite attractive, actually, but she is quite young looking, got a plump little cheek. And you might notice that his double chin, it's a little hard to see, but I think you'll see it there. There is really a little double chin where she got her nickname. Now, this was Maris's number 2, and we know this today as Sheldon 19. The 24th coin that was given a nickname was called the shielded hair. And this is one of the reasons why I showed the screw press. It's called shielded hair for a reason. By the way, it was Maris's number 32 and what we call Sheldon 65. You notice the head is a little more mature looking. The hair is of a different style. It appears that the figure is bigger, larger than the 93 head. And like I say, a bit more mature, very attractive, I think, but more mature. Now it's called shielded hair because look at the dentillation on the next coin and look at the dentillation around this coin that we're talking about. You notice that the dentals are strong on the left-hand side and towards the south, but not up on the northeast side. The dentillation on the 95 head, it's very strong all around. Well, on the screw press, let me just go back real quickly. Obviously, the 2 dies, the head die and the tail die, were misaligned horizontally. What I mean by misaligned horizontally, when they came down to clash, it's like the face of the top die and the face of the bottom die did not clash parallel to each other. It must have been askew. And the fact that we know they were askew is because this side of the obverse not the harder hit. The dentillation is strong here. It's weak here. The weak area shows where the dyes did not meet up as well as where the dyes met up over here. Now, the reason why I got the name shielded hair is because we all know that the dentillation on coins is provided to protect the devices from excessive wear. It's a very big help. Coins that have dentillation around it and it's high dentillation, they will wear better on the interior than if they don't have dentillation. And you can see that there is wear on the hair, wear on her forehead hair, the hair above her forehead, wear on the forehead, but look at the hair detail. It's shielded by the dentillation and therefore the name shielded hair. I'll make the next one quicker. The 95 head is obviously describing simply the head of 95. Notice it's lower relief, it's much flatter. Hair details are also flatter. And Miss Liberty she looks a little bit older, maybe not much older, but she certainly doesn't look like an old lady, but you can definitely see a different head style. So heads of 93, the young girl, a little more mature, the head of 94, and then lastly, the head of 95, because this style is found on towards the end of the cycle of 1794. And this is the head style on all 1795 large cents, except if you consider the Jefferson head to be a 1795. All right, moving on. Oh, by the way, this is Maris 39, or what we know as Sheldon 72. Sheldon 72 is the last Sheldon number of all of the 94s. Now I've only put together a few of my favorites. The sans milling. Sans meaning without, milling. Notice the Sheldon 21 has very little dentillation around it. If you find a Sheldon 21 or a Maris 3 with strong dentillation, you've got a rarity. Although nobody pays much more money for it, but there's very few Sheldon 21s. And there are some, they have strong dentillation. The coin will speak to you on how this can happen. Sometimes we think that the dies, the diameter of the dies might have been too wide to accommodate dentillation being imparted onto the planchet. But honestly, I think it was the other way around. I think the coin is telling us something else. I think the coin was too small in diameter to get the hit. We all know that in the early days of the US Mint, they were grabbing copper from wherever they could get it. They were trying to make coins as quickly as possible. I just think that these planchets were just a little bit narrow in the diameter, and that's why the dentillation is not there. So that's Sheldon 21, Maris 3, the sans milling. This little beauty, actually, this is one of the coins that I had in my collection. This is the Sheldon 57. And notice the shape of the head. If you take a look back, don't get too close, look back, and you look at Miss Liberty's line from her forehead to her nose, and you look at the hairline, and then you look at it along the bust line, although that's not much of a line. Dr. Maris obviously saw that this looked more like a pyramid than any other of the heads of the 94s. So he gave this nickname, this coin, his Maris 10, the nickname pyramidal head. The next one, Sheldon 26 or Maris 15, it's called the separated date. I think everybody can see why it was given that nickname, separated date. Notice the 1 and 7, 7 and 9, well, that's a bigger gap than the 9 and 4. The 1 and 7 are closer than the 7 and the 9, and the 9 and 4 are closer than the 7 and 9. Thus the nickname separated date. Now these are kind of boring, so let's get interesting. Maris 17, the ornate. I'm going to back up just for a moment. Maris 17, the ornate. And let's see, where is it? The ornate. And, oh, I think it was on the next page. And you see number 19 here, he called it nondescript. Well, Maris had both of these in his 1869 issue of his pamphlet. Nondescript and ornate. And then when he studied a little bit closer, he realized it came from the same dye. And I think he was a little embarrassed. How can you call something ornate on one coin, but call it nondescript on another coin? So in his 1870 issue of his pamphlet, he quickly dropped the nondescript and he kept the ornate in there. We know these today as Sheldon 28 and 29. They share the same obverse dye. So I think he was just a little bit embarrassed. And ornate because of the detail of the hair. It's very neat. There's no gaps. They flow freely. All these locks look like they're well executed. And that's why he called that one ornate. This is my favorite. I own several of these, the Sheldon 32 or the Maris 18. When I look back, I take a step back at this and I look at the way the hair flows. I think Maris, what he saw was a mermaid swimming underneath in the water and her hair flowing as she moved along. So he called her the Venus Marina, or translated the goddess of the sea. And I can conjure up all kinds of things when I look at this one. My wife used to get mad at me because I'd stare at it more lovingly than I would stare at her. So she'd make me put my coins away. And like a dutiful husband, I waited till she fell asleep. And of course, I yanked her back out. But anyway, all right, that's being silly. But this coin, he nicknamed Venus Marina, and I can get it. I can see because of the flowing hair. Sheldon 32. It's not a rare coin. It's not a rare variety, but it's quite lovely. This is one of my all-time favorites, the Fallen Four. Yes, he gave it the nickname Fallen Four, Sheldon 63 and Maris number 20. And I think if you take a look at the date, well, Fallen Four, I think Maris might have liked a stiff belt of scotch every once in a while. Maybe he liked his wine also. A Fallen Four, I can see what he means, but the four isn't fallen. What's really going on here? The 9 is really too high, isn't it? I think he should have called it the high 9. I think I'd understand that better. But he nicknamed this one the Fallen Four. It has stood the test of time. It's always known as the Fallen Four, but the 4 really isn't lower. It's just lower in relation to the 9, which is higher than any of the other digits. So I think these things are just so cool because of the names, but you can understand it. By the way, this is not a scratch or a dent or something that will cause NGC to say it's got damage. This is a spike that was in the die. It's on all of the Sheldon 63s. And by the way, notice the head style. It looks a bit different. This is one of the few coins in the 94 series. The reverse has small letters. The only other small letter reverse is the Sheldon 48, or the start reverse. Now, I'm not showing reverses today. I'm just showing heads, so I shouldn't really divert this conversation. You might also notice something unusual. On every Maris 20 or Sheldon 63, there's also this little dot right outside at the bottom of the cap. Every one of these has this dot and this little spike. But anyway, that's the Fallen Four. Patagonian. I think some of you might know from your readings in your history books about Patagonia in South America. What is that, around Argentina, Chile? People, tribes of natives that had very large heads. I don't think this head is much larger than any of the others, but Maris certainly did think that, and this got a nickname simply based on his look at it, that it was a very large head, and thus the nickname for Patagonian. I will also mention a little aside here. Notice this damage that NGC or PCGS might sometimes get wrong and say environmental damage. These are clash marks from when the dies hit each other rather than hit a planchet. That's actually an impression of a leaf. And it's a reverse impression because it's obviously a clash mark. So it's incused. It's just what it's supposed to look like. This is a stem from the wreath. This over here is another piece of a leaf from the wreath on the reverse. These are really clash marks, and they should not be anything that would detract from value on a coin. These are actually sought after by many collectors. But anyway, Patagonian for the large head. This was a nickname, Amiable Face, because Maris felt that this was a rather pretty face. He first called it Amatory. No, I think later he called it Amatory in his 1870 version, but in the 1869 version, he called it Amiable. And I think he got pressure from his wife to change the name. These also are clash marks that you'll see. Sheldon 30, Maris 26, clash marks. By the way, you can see the outlines of the leaves. Another leaf here, another leaf here. And these little spikes, this is from the ribbon on the reverse, the ribbon by the from the bow. And this is also the stem of the wreath. But Sheldon 30, the amiable face. And I'll just get to these last few here. The PreK, if you've ever taken Latin in school, I was forced to take Latin. I went to Catholic school. Well, anyway, and the Roman PreK. PreK is a designation for matted hair. And the, whoops, what happened, Chuck? And the Roman PreK, simply because of a more Roman nose, almost a straight nose. That's not a classic Roman nose that we're looking at. It is a little raised here. But Maris called this the Roman PreK because of the Roman nose and the matted look of hair, the clumpy hair. This one just simply the PreK, Sheldon 45, a very, very rare coin. Notice the matting. It's really a separation here. There's a void in between these two locks. Here there's no void, but it does look kind of clumpy, and that's what he meant by PreK, that they were clumpy. Sheldon 45, a rare one. Sheldon 67, not a rare one. Maris knew of both of these, and this is what I nicknamed the teardrop, because just to see below her eye, see all these little like drips, they're raised little lumps. Sheldon 67 is known for that. So if Maris and I had lived nearby and we got together, I would have said, hey, Ed, you got to call this one the teardrop. You can't call it Roman PreK. You got to call it teardrops. Anyway, Maris was a doctor, a medical doctor. He called this the trephine head. If any of you know about a trephine, it's like a circular drill, cylindrical drill. Doctors used to use it to drill into your skull. If you had pressure on your skull, they could drill in there, open up a little piece of bone, and drain any excess fluid from your skull. Well, that just gives me chills up my spine. I don't want to even think about that. Well, this was the trephine head, because see the hole in her head right back here? Well, that's what Maris saw. He saw this as a little dent in her head, so he nicknamed that trephine head. This is a scarce coin, Sheldon 62, Maris 42. And it also comes with a very, very large cud on the obverse. This is the perfect die state where there's no cud here, but this coin eventually it gets a very large cud. And that's one of the reasons why we kind of know that the head die, the obverse die, had to have been in the hammer position, in the up position, because this piece broke off and just lost. And there's quite a few that do survive. This perfect die state tends to be the rarer of the two. I would say that for every one of these, there are 6 that have the cud. And that's quite a difference. Well, there's Dr. Maris in his old age. You saw a picture of him when he was younger, and you see a picture of when he was a bit older. And I thought I might mention at the end of this that not only do we owe him a lot, he got the ball rolling, but I was able to obtain in the last stacks auction my show and tell for the night, and this is the Maris family medal. I'm sure that I know that many of you are medalists, so you will know that there were times when the U.S. Mint would produce medals for anyone that wanted. Well, Edward Maris, the same doctor we're talking about, he was one of many people that helped with the Maris family reunion, which was held in Pennsylvania in 1883. It commemorated the 200th anniversary of George Maris, born in 1632, and he settled in Springfield, Pennsylvania in 1683. So 200 years later, it says here, held 8 MO, 8th month, 25, 1883. The reason why they didn't want to write the word August for the 8th month is because these people were all, well, most of them anyway, were Quakers. Certainly the original Maris, George Maris in the 1600s, he came here to get away from religious persecution. And he was a Quaker. George, his descendant, was a Quaker. And they did not like the name August because it was named after, the month of August was named after Augustus, who they considered to be a pagan emperor. True story, I'm not making that up. I would not lie to you. But anyway, I was able to obtain this medal just recently in the Stax auction. I've always wanted one, and I found one that I really liked. And actually, this is a decent photo. The photo in the catalog was disgraceful, but I bought it anyway because of the description. And I have a friend at Stax. I asked him to tell me what it looked like. He said it looks way better than the photo. So I got lucky and I purchased this. And I must tell you, it's way better looking than the photo. But anyway, that's it. We'll open up to any questions. I'll leave this up for a moment in case you have a question that I have to go back and show. Does anybody have anything they'd like to ask?
I would like to say that it was a very good presentation.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it. If any of you are asleep, you're not offending me. I know what it's like to get a good nap. I'm a CPA. I went to many CPA conferences where I dozed out. Believe me. So
What is
don't
the
be.
newest reference you have for the large sense?
I'm sorry, say that again.
What is your most recent reference book for your large sense?
Most recent one is the one I'm writing.
Okay.
I'm writing one on dye states. What I showed you before with clash marks. I'm writing a book on dye states. But the most recent reference book, I think the best book on the 94 large sense is the book by Breen, Borchardt, and Bland. Breen had the notes. Breen had, I think, 6 different notebooks. And Mark Borchardt at Heritage put the notebooks together and came out with a very, very large book. It's available. It doesn't cost a lot of money. I mean, you can buy it for, I think the issue price was about $80. It is the most complete of any reference book. It references Maris numbers. It references Hayes numbers. It references Sheldon numbers. And of course, it uses the Breen numbering system, which I do not use. I don't use it out of any kind of jealousy towards Breen or any animosity towards him. It's just that no collectors really use it. They really use the Sheldon numbers. The best book you can buy for 94s in any large sense is the Breen, Borchardt, and Bland book.
So is your book going to only be concentrating on the 94s?
Yeah, I don't have enough days left in my life to do the entire series. The 94s are taking up so much time. It took me 20 years to get all the photographs I needed. And this year with the pandemic, I had a lot of time to do it. I'm halfway done. I am anxious. I want this thing done before the middle of the year. The dye states, by the way, the Breen book is the best on dye states. And you've got to really be into it if you want to read dye states. I mean, they can be boring as hell. But my book will have photographs that were taken with a digital microscope. So you can see why the guys that came before got things wrong. When we were kids, we used magnifying glasses. Now we have digital microscopes that are able to show what we're really looking at, and we can really get it right. Now, I'm not saying my book is not going to have mistakes. Everybody has mistakes, but I've got lots of photos in it, and when it comes out, I feel like I'm promoting the book. I'm sorry, I should stop this, but I got to tell you, the photos are coming out really nicely. I hope it comes out well in the book. But so get the Breen, Borchardt, Bland book. It's on all of the large sense from 1793 to 1814, just the early dates. If you want middle dates, the best book is John Wright's book, and I can show you copies of that. And after that, the best book is online at the EAC website. It's by Bob Grellman. You can get it for free. Anything from 18, let me get this right. Anything from 1840 to 1857, Bob Grellman's book for free at the Early American Coppers, eacs.org at their website.
Is this similar to the book, or is this?
I'm sorry?
Is this the book that? This is the book I have.
Oh, let me stop this. Oh, that's not bad. That's not bad. That's his encyclopedia.
Right.
The other book is much better detailed, Scott.
Okay.
Matter of fact, let me get it right now. It's right here.
This does have really good photos and descriptions if anybody's interested. It's a good book. It's fairly expensive. If you can find it, I don't know if it's.
Can you see this fairly well?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, now down here it says by Walter Breen, Del Bland. Now he's passed away recently, but Del Bland, he did all of the grading on the coins.
Right, good.
And edited by Mark Borkhardt from Heritage. This is how thick it is. It's a heavyweight. This is not something you're going to want to lug around at a coin show and try and use it to cherry pick.
Yeah, this is pretty thick because this is longer period. That has the cover of a Q. David Bauer look.
I'm so sorry.
The cover reminds me of a Q. David Bauer style book.
Oh, here you go. Right. So you see, this is a 1793 chain cent. Here's a 1793 wreath cent. This is the 1793 Liberty cap. And over here is a 1796 drape bust. And you see it does go 1793 to 1814. About $80. If you're interested, I think you just go on the website for Colby and Fanning. I'm sure David Fanning has a few of these in stock that he'd be happy to sell. If you mention my name, he's going to charge you $20 extra. So just tell him Mark Ricard sent you. You'll get the Mark Ricard discount.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, I get the huge discount from him.
Any other questions?
Yes, Charles.
Yes.
Yeah, this is Brian.
Sure.
Do you do anything with the 1794 half cents at all, Charles? Have you ever?
No, I never collected the half cents, but I know them. I have both the Cohen books. I've got the Breen book on the half cents. I've even got the Gilbert book on half cents that it was made for Homer Downing. Yeah, I've got all the books. They're very interesting.
I wonder if there probably aren't as many varieties because I don't think they made that many half cents in comparison to the cents.
1794, the reason why it's so popular, there are 69 different varieties with that date. 69. 58 of them were collectible. Well, Sheldon came up with this term, collectible and non-collectible. So if you had more than 3 known, they were collectible. If you had less than 3 or less known, they were considered non-collectible, that you'd never be able to get one. But there were 69 different.
Wow.
And in the half cents, I believe there are 11 1794 half cents. They were not nearly as popular as the large cents.
Mm-hmm.
Brian, what else did you have there?
Oh, that's it.
That's it.
Yeah, thank you.
Matter of fact, if you don't mind a quick aside, I know we have limited time. In honor of Richard, who's passed away, after we had that meeting and we all got to speak with him, he contacted me with a coin that he received in a large lot, and one was a 1797 half cent. So Brian, this might be right up your alley. And he said, look at this, can you tell me? Now it was in low grade, it was a little bit beat up, but it was my favorite of the 97 half cents. It's called the 1 over the 1. What happened is the 1 was punched into the die way too high, and you can't erase a punch. Then they punched it where it belongs, so it has a 1 and then a 1 above it. It's very strange looking. And these were known to be stamped on cut down large sense and Talbot Alderman Lee colonials.
Yeah.
Well, his was on a TAL, a Talbot Alderman Lee. And he'd asked me about, what I thought about the grade, the value. And, we had this nice conversation, and now he's gone. I'll tell you, it's really
Nice book.
it's poignant. It's tough. It's tough to see after this nice conversation with the man. But anyway, I'm sorry, I digress. Any other questions? I'm happy to answer.
Yeah. Do the mint records have much information on these various dyes?
No. If they did, they were either lost in the fire that was had some years ago. Even Robert Scott's book has never been found again. He kept detailed information. There is one book available that he kept detailed information in, but the other book that he talks about, what we think is it was stolen because people have seen it. I've never seen it, but people, my elders have seen that, and they told me about it, but it just disappeared off the face of the earth. So I think,
I've got it. It's in my library.
Yeah, I knew it was.
That's a joke, folks. Don't send the FBI or the Secret Service. Thank you.
I'm taking a trip up to Illinois tomorrow. I'm telling you, I'm going.